Hey everyone, today I'm going to talk to you guys about, I guess, going for twin outboards and all the different cost implications, etc., that go along with it. And I found it quite interesting when I was setting up this boat. As I've said before, I did definitely look at high-end cost options, biggest plate I could get, twin outboards, etc. And when I was doing that, no joke, every single dealer that I went to across Surtees, Extreme, Barcrusher, Yellowfin, they all absolutely tried to talk me out of going for twin outboards and recommended a big single instead. So I guess I wanted to just pick that apart a little bit, because I definitely at the time was really set on getting twin outboards, and let's face it, like, nothing looks cooler than having a big pair of twin outboards on the back of your trailer boat. It is a really cool thing to do. I guess so what I'm going to talk about today is why would you do it, how, implications, and cost, what sort of cost you can expect to go for twins. Alright, so why would you do it? I guess people do it, well, a few reasons. A, looks really tough and cool, but I think most people that are doing it in the offshore game fishing, trailer boat game fishing scene are doing it for reliability, okay, and having that peace of mind as having a second outboard out there doing big days offshore. Now, few things to consider there. Obviously, if you're going to have problems offshore, the main things that will cause a boat to break down are either electrical problems, fuel problems, or well, no, they're kind of the main two things. So electrical and fuel. So I mean, look, you'll see people say, look, if the two engines are sucking fuel from the same tank anyway, and it's going to have water in it, it's probably going to affect both engines. And if you're having electrical problems, the batteries, etc., probably feed both engines. They're probably not separated. But I guess then, so what you're really having with your failover is you're having two physical engines. So it is obviously possible for an engine itself to mechanically fail. So it's that mechanical failure that you're potentially avoiding by having a second engine. So that's typically why people do it. Definitely from an offshore handling point of view, having two counter-rotating propellers instead of one will increase your lateral stability underway. No doubt about that at all. So counter-rotating propellers is a really good thing for offshore handling. As you can appreciate with a single outboard, as the propeller turns, it's almost the equivalent like torque steering your car. It's a natural tendency to try and tilt your boat, basically. So you will have increased stability underway with twin outboards. Definitely, that's no doubt about it. So that's kind of why people do it. Offshore peace of mind for those big mega offshore runs, and improved handling and performance, I guess. Now, well, firstly, just touching on the performance just quickly. So a lot of people think that I don't know what people think, but basically, in my experience, you generally won't get an improved top speed if you're having the same horsepower in twins. Let's say in the example you're having a 300 horsepower single versus twin 150s. Generally, you'll get an improvement in bottom end torque and hole shot, and that's basically because you're spinning two propellers, which is giving you more of a transfer of that power and torque into actually forward momentum by having the two props on the boat. But I think the boats have a reduced top end speed because you actually have obviously increased weight on your boat by having two outboards, but more drag in the water. So you're dragging two actual legs through the water. So what I've seen is reduced top end in most cases, but increased torque and low down grunt, and obviously mid-range torque as well by going the twins. So that's kind of just a very quick and dirty overview of what you can kind of expect in the performance stakes. Now, moving on to how. I see a lot of people in forums talking about upgrading their existing single outboard boat to a twin outboard boat. And firstly, I would say if you have a boat, something like a barcrusher, which is like this one, for example, it's clearly been designed here with this single pod for a single outboard. Please don't do it. Please don't change your boat like this. It's been fabricated out of alloy. You will, at a minimum, probably ruin your boat, and you'll definitely ruin its resale value. So if you're going to put twin outboards on your boat, it needs to be set up that way, either from the factory or it needs to be done absolutely properly, because if you don't do it properly, the boat won't cope with the additional weight on the back of the boat, and it will ride like absolute shit, and you'll regret the massive expense. The boat needs the appropriate buoyancy at the back of it to be able to handle the twin outboards. And yeah, a lot of people ruin their boats by doing silly things. So my advice is buy a boat that was properly set up for twin outboards, or at a very minimum, you know, you really have to do it properly. And I don't know, probably need to be talking to some sort of marine engineer or something like that to help you with the process if it's absolutely something you want to do. Now, the most interesting thing here that I want to talk about today is the actual implications of putting twin outboards on a boat. So I guess it's pretty straightforward, right? If you see a boat, if we use a 300 horsepower example, I'm pretty sure the 730 barcrusher might be rated at 300. But anyway, 300 horsepower example, if a boat can hold 300, you would assume you can either do that in a 300 horsepower single or two twin, so 150s, right? That's pretty straightforward. Well, wrong. I'm here to tell you that is an absolutely incorrect assumption. So what I've found out on my research, during my research of most of these boats, and indeed this is plate alloy, fiberglass, the works, very few boats can actually accept their maximum horsepower rating for an outboard in a twin configuration. So what I mean by that is without having further implications. So some boats can't accept them at all in twins. So you'll have some boats that are rated to 300, but because of the weight of twin outboards, they can only actually take like twin 140s or 130s. They physically just can't take the weight. And then you have some other boats that are able to take the weight on the transom and then accept the twin outboards, but then you have to actually reduce your carrying capacity in the boat itself. So the boat, a given hull, can only take a certain amount of total net weight, and that's whether it's taken up by engines, fuel tanks, people, luggage, etc. So I found that really interesting. I honestly assumed that you could always put the maximum horsepower in twins, and several of the brands, including Barcrusher, Surtees, Extreme, etc., got back to me and said, no, you can't actually have the maximum horsepower on these boats and still carry the maximum amount of passengers that they're rated to. And for me, that's actually a big problem, because I'm always taking out, you know, maximum or close to maximum people in my boat. I always have a bunch of mates or family or whatever. So to me, that was really interesting. And it's something that you need to be really aware and careful of. So I saw, for example, a boat the other day. It was a 25-foot fiberglass boat, mega offshore, super deep V. I saw an article raving on about how it could take 500 horsepower to be upgraded to take two twin 150s, and it could accept 500 horsepower, and it had 500 litres of fuel, I think, as well, which is also massive for a trailer boat. And then in the fine print, it said in this configuration, it can only take 5 people on board. So who wants to spend $250,000, $300,000 on the ultimate trailer boat, and then with ultimate mega horsepower to only actually be able to take 5 people on board? So this is something that honestly I think manufacturers purposely don't put this on their website because it's a huge turnoff. It's a huge turnoff to go down the path of having twin outboards to then have to reduce your carrying capacity and stuff like that as far as passengers and things go. And like I said, a lot of them just physically won't even take the max horsepower. So basically that's why all the dealers that I spoke to effectively went, just don't bother with going down the twin outboard path. Now there are some boats out there, I'm not saying this applies to all boats, but there are definitely some trailer boats out there, especially in the fiberglass segment, that can still carry the twin outboard in the maximum horsepower and also all their passengers. And that's, I think, largely because the fiberglass boats, because the boats are typically bolted on the transom, they have a lot more buoyancy. They don't have like a little pod arrangement sitting out the back here. As you can see, this here wouldn't provide a whole lot of buoyancy or anything to this engine, kind of, if any. To be honest, that's not even, that's basically hollow under there. So I think the glass boats can cope better with the twin outboard configurations. So look, it's something to consider. It's something that I personally wasn't aware of, and when I started learning about these things, it was part of it. So these complexities and these implications about the twin outboards, it's one of the factors why I ended up deciding against it and kind of going for, I guess, this is a smaller boat, more of a bang for your buck boat. This is not an ultimate trailer boat by any means. It's a solid performer. All right, now if we think about cost, the cost aspects, you're definitely going to spend more money. Let's go back to the 300 horsepower example, buying two twin 150s than a single 300 horsepower engine. You're absolutely going to spend more money. And I actually, give me a minute, I'm going to find some up-to-date pricing here. All right. So you're going to have, firstly, you're going to have a bigger outlay on the outboards themselves. I absolutely guarantee that. Obviously, then you're probably going to have more cost to fit up twin outboards instead of one. All right, so these prices are current as of end of April 2021. So this is retail pricing, guys. So two Suzuki DF 150 ATXs, mechanical, would be $52,000. Two DF 150 drive-by-wires would be $56,000. Okay, so 56 grand there for a drive-by-wire, basically two 150s. Remember that. One 300 drive-by-wire would be $40,600. So you're looking there at a solid $15,000 roughly increase to go twins. I mean, 15 grand's a lot of money. I mean, it's a lot of money to me, and I don't know who that isn't a lot of money to, but to me that's a lot of money. So in that case, they're both drive-by-wire. That's a like-for-like comparison. So you've got to work out, is that 15 grand actually worth it? And depending on your boat, could you even put the two 150s on there, weight-wise? And what would that mean to the rest of your boat, ride, handling, etc.? Now, here's another interesting option. So I don't know if you guys have seen, but Suzuki and Yamaha, maybe other brands, have started to release outboards that have dual propellers, which are counter-rotating themselves. And I haven't had any personal experience with these new outboards, but I really like the idea of them because they're a single outboard. Okay, you have reduced weight compared to the twin outboards for sure, and you've actually got dual propellers on the one outboard that are counter-rotating. And everything that I've read and spoken to people about, they're actually very amazing. They are so cool, and I really love the idea of these things, and I definitely want to get some hands-on experience with them. But I do have a price on one. So they're quite expensive. There's quite a big expense increase because it's got a much more complex gearbox system and things like that. But a Suzuki 300 BTX drive-by-wire is $48,800. All right, so two 150s, 56,000. One 300 single prop, 40,000. So there's roughly $16,000 difference there. And one Suzuki dual prop, 48.8. So you basically, that dual prop drive-by-wire is sitting right in between the price of the other two. And to me, that then makes it a very valid option because it's lighter than the twins. You're still getting dual rotating, counter-rotating propellers. So apparently they give absolutely fantastic stability and totally eliminate that, like I almost said, like torque steer factor of a single prop spinning. And but yeah, I guess the downside is it's a single outboard as far as you know, a backup offshore if an engine fails and stuff like that. So that's kind of like some pros and cons there. But yeah, I think that's a pretty interesting situation. And like I said, all the dealers that I spoke to basically tried their best to talk me out of going to a dual outboard configuration. And I think it comes down to weight on your boat, what it does to your handling to consider, and also cost, etc. I mean, I think, to be honest, it only improves the offshore handling, having the counter-rotating propellers. And it is something that I think you do it if you've got a really serious offshore trailer boat that is almost like a no-expense spared type thing. And obviously, if you can afford it. I find it a little bit disappointing, particularly that a lot of these plate 7-meter range trailer boats hold will only take a maximum of 350 horsepower. I'd really like to see some more of them take 400 horsepower because look, let's face it, who doesn't want a trailer boat with 400 horsepower on the back? It just sounds cool, and it just is cool, and 350 is just not quite the same. So anyway, keen to see what you guys think about that. There are definitely lots of considerations to undertake when you're going down the twin outboard path, and I'm not sure if it's something that I will ever do, but I definitely love seeing twins on trailer boats. I think it's really, really cool, but obviously the people that have bought them have gone through all the considerations and implications that I've just mentioned. Yeah, let me know what you guys think and if it's for you, and I'll see you guys out in the water shortly.